When government goes wrong, what recourse could you have? What if I were to tell you, you are the power? Yeah, let's talk about that. Instead of focusing on winning arguments, we're teaching the basic fundamentals of sales and marketing and how we can use them to win in the world of politics, teaching you how to meet people where they're at on the issues they care about. Welcome to The Brian Nichols Show. Well, hey there, folks. Welcome to today's episode of The Brian Nichols Show. I am, as always, your humble host, joining me from our lovely Cardio Miracle Studios here in sunny Eastern Indiana. The Brian Nichols Show is powered by the best heart health supplement in the world, Cardio Miracle, but don't worry, we'll talk about that later in today's episode. Joining me, though, to discuss how, in fact, you are the power from You Are the Power is Ryan Ralston. Ryan, welcome to The Brian Nichols Show. How are you doing, sir?
I'm doing good, brother. Thank you so much for having me on.
Great to have you on the show. And folks who are joining us, they've been longtime listeners. They say, You Are the Power. That sounds really familiar. Yeah, it's because that's Spike Cohen's organization. We've had Spike here on the show many a time talking about all the great work that You Are the Power is doing. And I think last time on the show, we dug into a specific court case that was taking place down in Georgia with a family who had lost custody of their kids. Spike went into some of the details. And what's heartbreaking for me, Ryan, is that is only one story of the many stories that is being told over at You Are the Power by all the great stuff you guys are doing. So before we dig into some of those stories, do us a favor, introduce yourself here to the Brian Nichols Show audience and maybe a little bit more of the history of You Are the Power.
Sure. So my name is Ryan Ralston. I'm the Director of Operations here at You Are the Power. Been with the organization now for about 3 years. Started as just a volunteer, just someone that just fell in love with the organization, with its mission, and just wanted to be a part of it. So volunteered. From there, from there, I was promoted up to a state organizer here in Georgia, where I live. From that point, I moved up to the regional organizer in the Southeast, and from there, I serve as the national volunteer director, and then from national volunteer director, now I'm the operations director. So it's been a rather storied ascension in the organization, but man, I love it. There's no place I'd rather be.
Well, and tell us a little bit more about this org. You Are the Power. I know you guys are doing some amazing work
Yeah.
fighting the good fight where, we see cases of civil injustice, and a lot of cases where government it's not that they're just turning a blind eye. In many cases, government ends up ultimately being the bad guy in some of these situations. So give us a little bit more context into You Are the Power.
Yeah. So our mission itself, man, is just to protect individuals and families from local government abuse. I mean, we use the power of social media to tell their story. We demand local officials treat them with respect. And then that helps us ensure that permanent change is going to take place so these incidents don't happen again. And so, in short, when we talk about government overreach, that term is very broad, and it's by design, right? Because if the government can think about a way to do it, they're probably going to try to do it to you. So, um, we take on cases that range from First Amendment violations to family policing stuff where people have their children seized. We take on issues that involve eminent domain, which is really a big one for us right now. We've seen an uptick or a trend in that eminent domain, specifically as it centers around data centers. That seems to be a really contentious point in government because they want to take someone's property to build a data center. We focus in a lot of the times on local governments. Well, all our work centers around local governments, but local governments who enact ordinances that impact small business owners, people that are out there day in and day out putting in the work, helping their fellow citizens, whether through the unhoused community or helping people that maybe just don't have the financial resources to keep a roof over their head. So I mean, it's just everyday people putting in the work, doing the things. Doing the things that the government is tearing us down on. And so You're the Power really focuses in. Everything we do is maintained on a local issue. We don't get involved in national politics. And so it served us well. It absolutely has served us well. We operate in all 50 states. We're a national organization, 501(c)(3), and we have a little over 5,000 members across the country who help sustain us, and then when we launch a cause, help support those causes. And man, it's just a fantastic time to be involved with You Are the Power.
Well, and the fact that you guys are not only raising awareness,
Yeah.
this is the part when Spike was on last time, Ryan. We
Yeah.
emphasized this in detail. y'all are winning. And
We
I
absolutely.
want to hammer home that, right? You
Yeah.
are not just raising awareness, you are winning because you are the power. So tell us some of those wins. What does that look
Yeah.
like?
Yeah. So, we can say this without sounding braggadocious, right? So our success rate is almost 100%. So over the past 3 years, our success rate is about 98 to 99%. So when we get involved with a case, we can say definitively to our clients, it is more probable than not that we're going to be able to help you and we're going to be able to win. It doesn't mean that we always win. I mean, there are going to be times where, we just simply can't help someone, or it's just one of those matters where the government's going to buckle down or dig their heels in, and no matter what we say or no matter what we do, they're simply not going to change their mind. So, most recently, we've had a lot of success in eminent domain cases, and we've had a lot of success in family policing. And I believe that's one of the cases that Spike spoke to you about the
Mhm.
last time that he joined you on your show.
Yeah, well, it was one of the ones he talked about on the show. Oh, I just realized it wasn't the right camera. Wrong button, Brian. But when I talked to Spike last time, he was telling how this is the part that blew me away.
Yeah,
The government, it's not like there was an oops, we made a clerical mistake. We
yeah,
can fix it.
yeah,
It felt like, and keep me honest here, Ryan,
yeah,
it felt like overt malicious intent by certain members of the government. And I don't wanna be that guy, but, like, in an era where it just seems that government has been being the bad guy
yeah.
quite often, in this case, they seem quite malevolent, if I dare say so.
No, no, you hit the nail on the head there, especially when it comes to the family policing cases, right? So one of the trends that we identified is that the government was doing this wantonly just because they could. And it wasn't a matter of, well, like you said, "Well, we may have made a mistake and, maybe we shouldn't have done this. Here's your children back." It was like they're doing it because there's financial incentive to do this. And once they take a child, they're not going to give it back because they view it almost, for lack of a better term, and I'm not making light of the situation, as like a cash cow, right?
Well, and by the way, I don't mean to interrupt, Ryan. We talked about this with Congressman Massey back in the day with the COVID vaccines
Yeah,
during the push to get everybody vaccinated. There was a direct tie between doctors being compensated and
yeah,
getting their patients vaccinated.
yeah,
And to see that one-to-one correlation, and then you go, "Hmm,
yeah.
did they really do it because it was trust the experts and follow the science, or was it trust the economics and follow the cash?"
Yeah, there's a definitely economics at play because there's financial incentive for them to engage in this bad behavior, and until they were called out for it, there was no incentive for them to stop. And so one of the things that we noticed, that especially with family policing cases, is uh, in juvenile courts or family courts, they've operated within secrecy for decades. And these cases weren't talked about, cameras weren't allowed into the courtrooms. And so most juvenile court judges, at least in Georgia, I know all juvenile court judges in Georgia, they're not elected officials. They're appointed by the chief superior court judge of that circuit. So there's no ramifications for their bad behavior, right? They're not beholden to anyone. So they just continuously make these bad decisions and continuously seize these children. And so it does fall back into federal funding, Title IV funding, which has incentivized, the seizure of these children, specifically medically fragile children.
Well, let's talk about that, right?
Yeah,
Because you talk about victims,
yeah,
right? Who do the perpetrators tend to target? It is the weakest amongst us, right? And I worked in the mental health space for about 4 to 5 years when I was, towards the end of my education back when I was in high school, and, yeah, I was wiping butts when I was in 8th grade. Yes, that was when we grew
yeah,
up, folks. I was
yeah,
wiping butts at 14 years old. What a way to grow up that fast, too. But, like, you would see the stories from some of these folks, right? Like, I was privy to a lot of their files. Now, I'm not gonna, violate anybody's their privacy, but
sure,
some of these stories of the abuse that they received because of the fact they were not physically able to really defend themselves or
right,
advocate for themselves.
right,
And it was heartbreaking to see some of these stories. And in some cases, you go back to in upstate New York where, where I was from, one of the main sources for a lot of these people who had severe mental disabilities, mind you, this is in the early 2000s. This is right after the expose around the Willowbrook Asylum.
Yeah.
And Willowbrook was a state penitentiary, but there was horrible abuse taking place in
Yeah.
that asylum. And a lot of the folks that my organization that I was a part of, that we would service, they were from that facility. So you would see some of these stories, and it would just make your jaw drop. And that wasn't that long ago. And you think, well, that could never happen again. Now,
Right.
granted, this is not apples to apples. We're not talking about an asylum full of people, but we're talking about the fact that the folks that we as a society have put into positions of power where they're supposed to be more or less like, helping keep us safe. I'm using that
Sure.
very loosely and lots
Sure.
of air quotes for the audio listener. Like they end up being the biggest perpetrators, it feels like, Ryan, in a lot of these different areas.
Yeah, they really are. One of the things that we found just through our just extensive research, because I mean, when we first got involved in this type of work or first got involved in family policing cases, it took a lot of the team members time to wrap their brains around certain things, right? Because you want to trust that Child Protective Services has the best interest of the child at heart. It's in their name, right? Child
That's
protection, right?
by it's our nature, right? We want to
Right.
believe there's good in people.
Right. And I'm not saying that Child Protective Services is not needed because there are parents and there are guardians who abuse their children. But when Child Protective Services gets it wrong, they get it really wrong, and they fracture innocent families, and they're unwilling to acknowledge their mistakes.
And by
They
the way,
would
right, I don't mean to interrupt, but what you just called out there is very important
Yeah,
because there is a very large subset of people who they'll say, "Oh, you don't like how X is done? Does that mean you don't want X done at all?" And that is such a goofball
yeah,
kindergarten way of thinking
yeah,
about things. So I'm very glad you called that out because
yeah,
it's not saying we're not saying that there shouldn't be a role here. It's like,
sure.
if you're gonna do that role, can we at least ask you do it well? Or at
Yeah,
least just
that's
don't
at
do
a
it
minimum.
poorly?
At a minimum, be good at that job, right? Just
Minor
that job right there, be good at that job.
right.
And what we found was they were really not that good at their jobs.
Hmm.
And more and more families were being fractured, and they were having their children seized unnecessarily or prematurely. And this was not something that was isolated to Georgia just because that was one of the first cases that we got involved in. We kind of opened Pandora's box when we first got involved in Child Protective Services work because we found that it is emblematic of all Child Protective Services throughout the country, right? They were really and truly relying on this money, this federal funding to keep children in foster care. The vast majority of these federal funds that go into the state budgets were set aside to keep children in foster care, and a small portion was set aside for reunification. So there was no incentive once a child was seized and they realized a mistake was made for them to return that child.
Hey folks, I want to take a moment to talk about something that has truly changed my life, and that is Cardio Miracle, our incredible studio sponsor. Now, I'll be honest, when I first heard about Cardio Miracle and their claims about improving heart health, I was skeptical. But after using it for just about 2 months, I was absolutely blown away by the results. First, my blood pressure went from being consistently around 140 over 90 to a much more healthier and manageable 120 over 80. And my resting heart rate dropped from the low 70s to the high 50s. And I couldn't believe it. But the benefits didn't stop there. I started sleeping better, and I felt more energized at the gym, and my heart felt the best it's felt in years. And it's not just me. Hundreds of you, our amazing listeners, have reached out to share your own incredible experiences with Cardio Miracle. So, what is Cardio Miracle, and how does it work? It's a carefully crafted supplement that harnesses the power of nitric oxide to support optimal heart function. So, by increasing nitric oxide levels in your blood, Cardio Miracle helps relax your blood vessels, improve circulation, and it protects your heart from damage. It's like giving your heart the support it needs to function at its best. And here's the best part. We've got an exclusive offer just for you, our loyal listeners here at the Brian Nichols Show. When you head over to cardiomiracle.com and use code TBNS at checkout, you'll get an extra 15% discount on your order. Plus, with their 100% money-back guarantee, you've got nothing to lose and everything to gain. So, if you're ready to take control of your heart health and experience the life-changing benefits of Cardio Miracle for yourself, just click the link in the show notes or video description. Trust me, your heart will thank you. And don't wait another day to prioritize your health. Join the tens of thousands of folks who have already discovered the Cardio Miracle difference. Head to cardiomiracle.com now and use code TBNS for 15% off your order. Your journey to a happier and healthier heart starts today. And now, let's get back to the show.
To 20%. So imagine if you will, just being a parent. I'm a parent. I'm now a grandparent. So think about this for a second. If once the state seizes a child, it is more probable than not that you are not going to get that child back, and that child is going to be adopted out, not to family, but to strangers, because there's financial incentive to do so.
And by the way, meanwhile, we have millions of kids who are aborted every year. And I hear this from a lot of our friends, and I'm gonna generalize here. A lot of our friends on the left who are like, "Oh, well, what about adoption?" It's like, well, the systems that, again, a lot of our friends more on the left tend to really bureaucratize, like Child Protective Services and such, and they weaponize them. Those have ended up taking good kids from normal homes, put them into an foster system they shouldn't be forced into in the first place. Meanwhile, you have other people who are trying to make a horrible decision or, another decision, and they just can't figure out which one to do. And they think the adoption could be an option, but they're like, "Oh, is it an option?" Like, yes, these are just common sense solutions, right? And maybe I'm emotionally charged because like you, I'm a dad, right? And I can't imagine being in that situation where you did nothing really wrong, right? Like you're being targeted, and it just, how do we get here? How does society get to this point?
Yeah, it's one thing that we found, Brian, was that the only thing these parents were doing were bringing their children to doctors because they didn't understand the symptoms that their children were displaying, right?
Mhm.
And so they had some very complex medical conditions whose symptoms can mirror abuse. And so what we found was doctors, child abuse pediatricians in particular, once they got involved and started making a medical misdiagnosis and saying, "Oh, this is not genetic, this is abuse," then the state digs their heels in. They take these children and they don't want to listen to independent experts who say, "Hey, this is not abuse, this is a medical condition," because there is that financial incentive to keep those children in foster care. And it is I would argue, a multi-million-dollar industry per state. So in my opinion, one of the most prolific child traffickers in each state would be Child Protective Services. And I say that not to sound like, the boogeyman, because I know we're talking a lot about in society right now, child trafficking. But if you look at just by definition, what trafficking is, you are taking a child, seizing a child, and then there's financial incentive for you to keep that child in custody, and then there's a greater financial incentive for you to adopt that child out. So that is what I mean by prolific child trafficking. And you're doing so because you're taking children from either someone who doesn't have the financial means to defend themselves, or you put them up against impossible odds, right? If you're talking about a children's hospital, in Georgia, we have one children's hospital, Children's Healthcare of Atlanta, and it's the most well-known children's hospital, one of the most well-known in the Southeast. And so their annual budget is in the billions. And so how do you combat that? How do you combat those doctors? How do you combat a hospital that can keep you tied up in litigation for decades? You are going to run out of money. And then you're not only that, but you're battling a state who is also not going to run out of money, right? They can keep you tied up in litigation again for decades if they have to. And there's no financial incentive. There's no incentive for them to return your child. They're going to essentially bleed you dry until you just say, I can't fight this anymore. They have your child, and that's the end of it. And during this process, they're demonizing you as well, right? They are involving law enforcement. Law enforcement is charging you for crimes that never occurred, and so they're going to try to put you in prison for decades, again, for a crime that never occurred. So it is a massive uphill battle. But I can say this with confidence and not arrogance, is something that we didn't shy away from. Once we did our vetting on these causes, and we knew that our clients were factually innocent, meaning that they were free from any blame, they were blameless, they did not commit a crime. We had no problem whatsoever defending them, and we win. We won. I mean, a lot of these families, they have been reunited with their children, but it took a couple of years for us to work our way through these processes. But once we did, it's really opened the door for a lot of our work. We've seen over 1,000% increase in requests for assistance as it relates to family policing as a result of us winning a lot of these cases.
I want to go back to something you mentioned with the parents being so unfairly targeted, right?
Yeah.
And facing that pushback from government entities. And just this is why your average person is so disgusted by and large with government, because they see this well-intentioned families who are put in just horrible situations because either of misunderstandings or like legitimate like mix-ups.
Yeah.
And the government will go out of their way to make sure they make your life a living hell. Meanwhile, you have these millionaires and billionaires who are on this list of Jeffrey Epstein's and exposed in the millions of emails that were released, and there's nothing. It's just like, maybe we'll talk about that, but they don't exist. But also, what Pam Bondi say? There's tens of millions of videos of all these horrible things being done, but there's nobody that actually was being trafficked to,
Right.
right? Like, and this is the part
Right.
where your average person hears this and they're like, dude, our priorities are so backwards as a society that we are focusing on very real, like real horrible, evil things being done, ignoring those. Meanwhile, we have people who like just oopsie, like an oopsie happens, or
Yeah.
not even, and they're getting tied up and then targeted. It feels like we're so backwards as a
It
society, Brian.
it's absolutely backwards, and one of the things that the team and I discuss quite frequently is it's almost like you have to level the playing field, right? Because we don't have those unlimited resources. We don't have the means to stay in litigation for decades. So what we have to do is we have to be very precise, almost clinical in our advocacy, right? So when a request for assistance comes in, we're going to vet them. We are going to ensure that our client is factually innocent, and then we are going to approach it from the principle to the people to policy to principle approach, which is a little bit different from other organizations. And what I mean by that, Brian, is we don't want to take to our social media and say, government is bad, or this particular policy is bad, or this particular law is bad. What we do when we take to our social media for a client is we say, we want you to meet, Derek and Mary Smith. They are loving parents to three beautiful children. They live in this state. They live in Indiana. 6 months ago, they took their medically fragile daughter, Diane, to a hospital, and they were, from that point forward, falsely accused of abuse. This is the policy that allowed the state to seize this child, and this is what we want to address. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to tailor a call to action. We're going to ask people across the country, hey, we want you to help this family. And that resonates really well because we start with the personal approach to our advocacy. And we're not so much focused in on the policy initially as we're really focused in on the people that have been harmed and the people that are doing the harm. And so that's how we can attack that relatively quickly, and we can get it to resonate with millions across the country really quick.
Well, and this is what going I think back to literally the first episode that Spike was on, like,
Yeah.
5 years ago,
Yeah.
6 years ago, I don't even remember now at this point, but, like, there was that whole Ben Shapiro, like, "Heh, facts don't care about your feelings, heh," and then it's like, yeah, but feelings sell. And you can lead with policy, right? You can lead with
Sure.
the numbers, and
Sure.
you can read with the logic and the reason all day long. But if you aren't able to pull at heartstrings, if you're not able to get people
Yeah.
to feel emotionally invested, like, good luck. And this is why, for what you guys are doing, you're bringing that emotional piece to the front and center.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that's something that it will not only help in terms of making think like actual change happen. But this is the part I think it opens the door for more families who are experiencing these similar hardships to now feel that they have an avenue. And I think you said it's 1,000% increase. Is that correct?
Yeah,
In
it was a little
outreach?
over 1,000%
Holy
increase.
hell, right?
Yeah,
Like that's insanely effective
it
in you
is.
guys getting awareness that, hey, you are in this bucket, we can help.
Yeah, and it speaks volumes to the team too, and here's what I mean by that, Brian. In 2024, we received and processed, 333 requests for assistance. Last year, we received and processed 810. This year, we are anticipating receiving and processing anywhere between 1,300 to 1,500 requests for
That's
assistance.
amazing. That's 1,000 more than you had originally.
Yeah, and that speaks volumes, number 1, to our approach, and number 2, to our team. Just a fantastic team of people, volunteers who give of themselves freely to make sure that the government is not harming folks on the local level. And it is that people to policy to principle approach that serves us so well. And at the end of the day, do people care about policy? Sometimes. But people care about people, and that is not lost on us, right? So it's not lost on us that we want to tell our client's story from their perspective, and it serves us well, and it's evident in the fact that we're going to have almost 1,500 requests for assistance this year. When we formed our family reunification program, Brian, last year, it was up and running by June, and 30% of our requests for assistance last year, 30% of those 810 involved family policing, and our family reunification program wasn't founded until halfway through the year last year. So there is a need for this, there is a demand for this. We saw that, we identified that, and we worked with Spike and said, "Hey, we need to form this type of team to combat these issues." And it was a no-brainer for him, and it was a no-brainer for us to make that happen.
Well, I just I can't believe that it took a former VP candidate in Spike Cohen, right, to,
Yeah.
like, kind of be the face of, like, getting some of these issues out there because these aren't new, right?
No.
And this is the part where the reason we're talking about this, Ryan, is
Yeah.
because of the medium that we're in today, or the rather the media we have access to today, right? We can
Sure.
do a
Sure.
podcast, we can do social media, we can raise awareness for these different issues, and that just simply wasn't the case 15, 20 years ago,
Yeah.
right? Like,
Yeah.
I think back to when I was, in college, and the gatekeeper situation was real. Like, you wanted to
Yeah.
get anything out there that challenged the mainstream, good luck. Like, either you go to a noted publication or you're yelling into the void mostly. And it took, folks like, what Spike was doing over back when he started his podcast, what, the We Are Libertarians network I joined back in 2015, 16,
Yeah.
Austin Peterson's organization, like the Libertarian Republic, like all these different folks who have been out there leading the way, and they're built on the backs of folks who have been trying to raise awareness that they just didn't have the tools. And we have a lot of tools now that
Yes.
can help us, make not just awareness happen, but actually like get some wins. And again, going back to what Spike was talking about last time, you guys aren't just raising awareness, you're getting wins. So just tell us some more of these, I like to call it a win wire, right? Like give me the win
Yeah.
wire of what you or the power has been
Yeah.
experiencing so far.
Yeah. So, some recent victories, right? So there was a family farm in New Jersey that was being threatened through eminent domain. We were able to advocate for that particular family, and the government backed down on that. There was the potential for a local ordinance. Again, this was in New York. I'm sorry, that family farm was in New Jersey. This local ordinance was in New York that I'm getting ready to speak about, where they were going to potentially require um, people to register their wheelchairs or their motorized mobility devices, and which was absolutely ridiculous. They were going to charge them basically a tax and have them register their independent mobility devices.
Sorry, you're cripple. Here's your bill.
Yeah, basically
What?
that's what this local government was doing. So we helped fight back on that. There is there is we're getting ready to launch cases in California where there was a mobile home community that partnered with the government. I don't know, this was probably 30 years ago, to where they were going to basically own the property, own their homes, because and they partnered with the government to, to help do this. The government has backed out on that, after the community has spent over $20 million since then, to pay for this property. Yeah. So I mean, we're gonna launch stuff like that. I mean, there's just ample opportunity for us to continue to serve those in need, because just when you think, the government couldn't quite do that, like how can the government even think that that's a good idea? They're going to try to do that. And so it keeps us. I don't want to say it's job security, because that sounds like I'm being contrite about something, but it's just one of those things where, it just when you think the government can't do it, they're probably gonna try to do it, and they're just gonna see what they can get away with, and that's the beauty of the work that we do at Your Other Power, is we are going to call them out for their bad deeds. We are not afraid to show up at a county commissioner meeting, a city council meeting. We're not afraid to go where, our clients are, and meet the government, on their own terms, meet the government, like, face to face, and say, "Hey, this is what you are doing to our clients. This is what you're doing to your community, and this needs to stop." Now, we do this in a very respectful way. We're not busting down someone's doors with our pitchforks and our torches, and we're not going in there looking for the Frankenstein monster or anything like that. But what we're trying to do is have respectful, open dialogue and say, "Hey, this is how these local ordinances are negatively impacting your community. This is how your actions are causing harm to this particular family. And we need you to stop doing that before you harm other people." And we have found that that approach to advocacy works. Again, we tell it from the people to policy to principle perspective, but every single thing that we do is based on, the principle of human respect. Right? It is our foundational ideology. It's not going to change with the times. It's something that we are going to continue to promote. It is every single thing that we do within this organization boils down to that. And what we mean by that is it's the government's violation of the principle of human respect that keeps us busy. And so our work begins when those violations occur. So when a application is received, once a case is vetted, once we accept them as a client, we're in it for the long haul. We're not going anywhere. We're not going to change our mind. We're not going to back down just because the government says they want to, continue to engage in this type of behavior. Like, we're not afraid of a fight. We're just not, right? We are not, afraid to back down. We go to where the government wants to challenge us, and we meet them on a level playing field, and do that.
My whole little shtick here on the show is to meet people where they're at, and I
Yeah.
guess you're taking that quite literally, meet government where they're at, and
Yeah.
you know what? Like, good. We need folks actually playing offense. For too
Yeah.
long, especially just by the nature of how it kinda was, everybody was playing defense, right? And
Yeah.
now that we have the tools that we have and the technology is where it is, I think we have much more means to play offense. And it's on us to lead the charge. It's on us to continue talking about this stuff, right? And like to the audience, I know some folks are passive listeners, right? And this is not
Yeah.
a critique. This is just reality. Folks will listen to a podcast and they'll be like, "Oh, that's sad. I wish I could help." You can help.
Yeah.
Like this is something you can actually help today.
Yeah.
And the power is not just isolated to Georgia. To the point we talked about earlier, that you're nationwide. You're in all
Yeah.
50 states. So just for the audience listening, Ryan, just give us kind of like the action item because I want people to feel they are the power and they should feel empowered from today's episode. So what does that look like and how can they help?
Yeah, the easiest way, the simplest way for someone to get involved with our organization is to join our organization, and join on the free level. What I like to say is take us for a test drive. Let us know what you think about the organization. Get involved in one of our calls to action. The easiest way to bring about effectual change is to send an email or make a phone call on behalf of one of our clients. It might take 5 minutes out of your day. You can do it at your convenience, And I promise every phone call, every email, as it ties back into a call to action, has a positive impact for our clients. It's not uncommon for us to go to a court hearing, to a hearing. We've become part of the voir dire process in criminal proceedings now, but it's not uncommon for us to show up to a county commissioner meeting or a city council meeting, and for a council member or a county commissioner meeting to say, I've received 500 emails from people supporting this You Are the Power organization. What does this mean?
Hmm.
It is not uncommon for us to go to court and hear a prosecutor say during the voir dire process to potential jurors, are you a member of You Are the Power? Do you support You Are the Power? Do you know who Spike Cohen is? Do you financially contribute to You Are the Power? Do you share their content on your social media? So we have become part of the dialogue, and we've become part of that dialogue in a relatively short amount of time. We're a relatively young organization, and we've had such a profound impact on communities as a whole, that we are now being thought of as not only a force to be reckoned with, but prosecutors and judges and city council people want to know more about us. Like, who are they? What do they do? I have been in court where I had a district attorney's investigator pull me aside. He had been following my social media, following our work on You're the Power, and he pulled me aside and he's like, "Hey, he made a comment because I was getting ready to go on a trip to Texas to support a cause, and he says, "Good luck on that cause support in Texas." So they're watching us. They know what we're doing, and I'm actually flattered by that. That the government thinks so highly of us that they're actually kind of watching what they're watching what we do.
You're flattered, I'd be concerned, but,
Yeah,
Ryan, at the same point in time, it does mean that you are making a difference, right?
yeah,
And that you are raising, the spidey senses of the
sure,
folks who they frankly need to have those spidey senses tingling because,
yeah,
we're at a point right now where, people are tired. They're tired of seeing the status quo. They're
yeah,
tired of seeing the most, the most disadvantaged amongst us getting constantly screwed, both, uh, not trying not trying to do a double entendre there, but we're seeing that happen. Where just with especially the Epstein stuff, right? Like,
yeah,
people are at an all time, like sensors are up for injustice,
yeah,
and thank goodness, right? Like it's time for us to now actually hold folks accountable, and that's not just the folks that are the nefarious folks in the Epstein files, but this is your local government officials. This is your
yeah,
local bureaucrats, right? Like
yeah,
it's not as sexy to go and battle those folks as it is to go and battle the big bad Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine
sure,
Maxwell and
sure,
oh, it's a Mossad conspiracy. Like it's not as
yeah,
sexy. It's not as fun to go and say, hey, I'm gonna go, stand up against City Hall and CPS, and yeah, that's not gonna get the the X headlines. It's not gonna get the
no.
trending hashtags, but you can make a difference, right? And if you need some help, call in backup. Call Spike and Ryan and team over at You Are the Power. So, with that being said, I think we're gonna go ahead and put a pin in today's conversation. Ryan, bring us home. Final thoughts you want for the audience, and of course, next steps for folks who want to reach out and say hi.
Yeah. So if you want to reach out and say hi, go to youarethepower.net. You can click on the button that says contact us. If you need our help, on the screen on the upper hand taskbar, there is a contact us button. You can hit that. There's a short form you can fill out. It says request help. If you want to volunteer under that same contact heading, under that same tab, you can complete a short application. It might take you about 30 seconds and volunteer with us. Join us. You can join us for free. If you have any questions or want to talk to a team member, um, if you don't mind, Brian, I will give my email address. You can share it, and I will write back to you. Every one of our members that join us, we send them we send them an email, a welcome email. When I was the volunteer director before I moved up to operations director, I would send my personal cell phone number to our members and say, if you ever have any questions, give me a call, shoot me a text message. I want to hear from you. And so we still maintain that mentality. We've not gotten too big for our britches. If you want to speak with a team member, please, please, please reach out to us. If you have any questions, we'll take the time to answer them. We're always here. We're always available. We want to get involved. We want to hear from you. And if we are able, we want to help you.
Ryan, this has been a lot of fun. I mean, the stuff we talk about isn't fun, but what is fun is the fact that there is an organization out there like You Are the Power who's fighting the good fight,
Yep.
and you guys are raising awareness, and you're getting skins on the wall in the best of ways. So, folks, again, if you want to go ahead and help, you can go ahead and check out You Are the Power. Links will all be in the show notes. And if you got some value from today's episode, which I know you did, please go ahead, give it a share. When you do, tag yours truly at B Nichols Liberty on X, Facebook, and Instagram. And all of the social media links for You Are the Power will be included down below in the show notes. And yes, we are a podcast and a video version of the show. You can find that over on YouTube, Spotify, Rumble, wherever it is you consume your video content, or for your podcast pleasure, head over to Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube Music, wherever it is. Hit that subscribe button, and of course, hit that little notification bell, because we have over 1,000+ episodes here of the Brian Nichols Show, with a brand new episode airing every Thursday night at 9 p.m. Eastern. So go ahead, make sure you put that into your calendars, and make sure you sit down, popcorn in hand, and check out a brand new episode of the Brian Nichols Show. You can watch it on the big screen there, Rye, over on the YouTube Roku app. It's always a pleasure. My daughter goes, "That's Daddy's show," when she sees the logo. She's 3, so she's a smart cookie. Also, good kid book. With that being said, Ryan, I'm going to go ahead and let you have final words for the audience today. Bring us home.
Bring us home. Brian, thank you so much for having us on. Thank you so much for spreading awareness. Thank you so much for every single thing that you do. I appreciate the opportunity to come on and talk about You Are the Power. Again, if anybody wants to know more about us, head to youarethepower.net. Hit contact us, and a team member will respond to you within 24 hours.
There you go. All right, folks. Well, with that being said, Brian Nichols signing off here on the Brian Nichols Show. We'll see you next time.
Thanks for listening to the Brian Nichols Show. Find more episodes at briannicholsshow.com.